Con el auspicio de Plenitud, Ciudad de la Alegría, hogarplenitud.org.es, Serenidad Spa Terapéutico, serenidad.es, Permasalud Glamping, permasalud.com.
Bienvenido a este programa dedicado a la vida y la música de David Arkenstone, quien estará con nosotros para contarnos sobre su trayectoria. La entrevista será en inglés y el programa completo estará disponible en el canal Vimeo de Grupo Serenidad con subtítulos en español. Y en YouTube subiremos solo la entrevista con subtítulos. Recuerda, nos encuentras como Grupo Serenidad en cualquiera de estas dos plataformas. Claro que nada con el programa completo, con toda la música, pero al menos hay opciones. Así que espero que disfrutes de su historia y de su música. Antes de comenzar con la entrevista, pues te voy a contar algo breve sobre él. Nació en Chicago, Illinois, en julio de 1952. Es considerado un compositor multiinstrumentalista del género New Age. Su música es principalmente instrumental con vocalizaciones ocasionales. Su música ha sido descrita como bandas sonoras para la imaginación. Después de mudarse a California a los 10 años de edad, Arkenstone se sumergió en la música. Pasó la escuela secundaria y la universidad tocando teclados y guitarra en una variedad de bandas y grupos de rendimiento. Viajó por todo el país tocando estos distintos instrumentos. David trae magia a cada proyecto que hace. Eso lo hemos escuchado en su trayectoria de más de 30 años en la industria musical, con 5 nominaciones Grammy por su trabajo en los discos In the Wake of the Wind de 1991, Citizen of the World de 1999, Atlantis de 2004, Fairy Dream de 2019 y Pangaea de 2021, además de 20 hits en la Billboard. Le llaman el maestro del sensacionalismo sónico. Con él vamos a dialogar sobre su trayectoria y la música. Para que tengas idea de quién se trata, iniciaré con el tema The Wolf's Head de su disco Myths and Legends del 2007, el tema cover Did I Make the Most of Loving You con Charlie Brooks del disco Inamorata de 2015, y que además es el tema de la serie Downton Abbey, escrito por John Loon con la letra de Don Black. Escucharemos también Festival of the Goddess de su disco Atlantis de 2004 y el tema Origins del disco con Charlie Brooks titulado Loverin de 2013. Espero que disfrutes muchísimo de este programa.
Estás escuchando New Age, el programa de la nueva era.
Okay, as I mentioned you today, we have a great artist with us today. It's David Arkenstone. And we're going to start with some questions, including some Arken fans questions that have written me for the interview today. So, David, what we're going to do is just go through your music history from all the way from Valley in the Clouds to Caravan of Light. Sort of browsing through it, but with the couple of questions that I'm going to do, plus the questions from the Arken fans. So to start with, I would like to know, as well as some people that wrote me, how did you start your musical journey? When did it start? How did it start in your life, your bond with music?
Well, that's a big question, but I think it started when I was a child, and my parents had a very eclectic record collection. And so they would play everything from jazz to Tchaikovsky to vocal music to musicals to just whatever, a lot of classical music too. And I think I got hooked on hearing it. My mother was an excellent piano player, and my father was he's a singer. My mom was a singer too, and my father was a singer and a guitar player.
Wow. So Tim Taylor, and this is related to what we're talking, he wants to know what bands or artists do you listen to or are fan of nowadays?
You know, I like a lot of Irish music, and I really love Peter Gabriel.
Peter Gabriel, I love him too. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
I think he's coming out with something new.
Yeah, I just saw him in San Francisco about 4 months ago.
Oh
It
my
was,
God, how fun. Yeah,
yeah.
he's amazing, and that he's traveling nowadays. By the
Hmm.
way, somebody just asked me, I think it's George, um, no, no. Somebody asked me from the Arkin fans if you were going to do some tour in the East Coast.
We've been talking about that for several years. The last time I was there was in 2013 or 2015. And I would like to go to the East Coast. It's expensive to drag a band around, of
Yeah,
course.
so many
And
musicians.
yeah, because I don't like playing by myself. I like playing with the band because it's a lot more fun.
Yeah, and I'm
Um,
sure that would cost a lot of money because so many musicians and transportation with equipment and everything.
all that. Yeah, that's
Wow.
that's probably the thing that's kept me from doing it for this long. But I would like to do it again
Oh.
because we've been touring in the Pacific Northwest and the Colorado and Arizona, and I would like to go to the East Coast for sure, and the
Oh, yeah.
Midwest.
Hopefully soon, or hopefully in the future before this world collapses.
Yes, hopefully before that.
So Daniel Jenkins wants to know if you were formally trained or if you were self-taught.
I started taking piano lessons when I was about 7 until I was about 13, and then I picked up the guitar and stopped the piano lessons, but I kept playing piano. But then I started playing piano and flute and drums and just trying to make my own orchestra, sort
Amazing.
of. So some of it was self-taught, but I did have a good foundation.
Yeah, that's great. Now, you started off in Valley of the Clouds with electronic music for Narada Mystique. So, by being a multi instrumentalist as you are, what made you choose synthesizers and other electronic instruments to start with your journey in music?
Well, I think a lot of things changed in around 1985 or 1986 because computers and synthesizers began to be able to speak to each other. And once that happened, I could make many sounds on my own without a band, just try to refine my compositions and try different things, more easier because I was before that I was just using tape recorders and I would record 4 tracks and then I would bounce those and I would record 4 more, and by the time you're done you can't hear the first tracks that you played. So uh, the computer speaking to the synthesizers was very helpful because I could do all the 8 parts or whatever and hear them and balance them and figure out where my composition was going a lot quicker than usual.
And so, like, uh, I read that you were influenced by Guitaro's music before choosing to do electronic music. Is that right?
Well, I don't know if I was influenced by his music, but I remember going into a record store because I was starting to make instrumental music and I was just looking for instrumental, see what was out there. And I noticed he had a couple albums, LPs out there. And I listened to it. And I don't know if I was influenced, but I realized that there was a way I could go with my music.
Hmm.
Uh,
I was thinking maybe because of the electronic tendency that he has, and
Yeah, but he also mix in real instruments too, which I did on Valley in the Clouds. I played flute and guitar, and we had real drums, as well as the electronics. So I was always looking for that blend of electronics and orchestra and live instruments.
wonderful. And how did you enter the Narada list of artists?
Well, I made a bunch of music and I put it on cassette tape, and I sent about 10 cassettes out into the world, and they were the ones that seemed to be in a place that would be the best for me. I got a response from several other labels, but Narada, I met with them and talked with the producer there and decided that was the way to go. And lucky for me, it was the way to go.
Yeah, because it was interesting because they had like three divisions like Narada Equinox, Mystique, and Narada Lotus, which sort of labeled the kind of music in each branch of it. So it was great that you would start. I mean, you were probably one of the first artists to record for Narada Mystique. Was it right?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. My record was actually done in September, I think, and it didn't
1987.
come out until the next year almost because they were getting that label together. And so my album and one by Peter Buffett, I think, were the first two albums that came out on that label.
Amazing. So in the album Islands, which was a collaboration with Andrew White, and it was more acoustic. So what motivated you to sort of go from the electronic major focus to the acoustic album?
You know, I it's hard to say, except that I always like to change things all the time. I like to try different things, and I heard Andrew's music, and he was an incredible guitarist. And I'm a good guitarist, but I don't play like that. And so I thought there would be a good combination, and the label thought so too,
Hmm.
because they originally introduced us.
What would be your favorite instrument to compose in?
Depends on what I'm doing, you know. A lot of times I start with a drum beat. Sometimes I just start with a piano. And sometimes I just start with a keyboard that's attached to all the sounds I have in the computer. Could be strings, could be an oboe, could be anything. A lot of drums though. I like drums.
You like
Unless I'm
drums?
doing a more chill thing.
Yeah, we'll talk about those things after listening to some of the music of your first New Age album, Valley in the Clouds. We're going to listen to Ancient Legends. And then from Islands, from the 1989 album, we will listen to Nantucket and Caravan. We'll be back with more of David after this music space.
Con el auspicio de Plenitud, Ciudad de la Alegría, hogarplenitud.org.es, Serenidad Spa Terapéutico, serenidad.es, Permasalud Glamping, permasalud.com.
Okay, so David, in the Citizen of Time, you start storytelling through music.
Yes.
What took you to realize that ability that you have to do storytelling through your art?
I don't know, but can we back up just for 1 second? Because you played Ancient Legend. I had a comment about that.
Oh, okay, sure.
Because then I will go to Citizen of Time.
Okay, great.
Because that was the first track on Valley in the Clouds, and I had been wanting to make a record for so long, and that was the first track that anybody heard of me.
Yes.
So I was very excited the first couple times I heard it on the radio. It was super powerful because I grew up listening to radio, and so hearing that track on the radio and knowing that a lot of other people were hearing it was a very powerful moment. So
Yes, I imagine. I mean, I have a question related to that, but I first want to go through some of the other albums before
Yeah, sure.
I can have you pick one. So,
You know, I think with Citizen of Time, I always liked stories. You know, I was very into Lord of the Rings. I liked the band Yes. They had sort of complicated music, and I wanted to start doing something that was close to a concept album. So I started to make a bunch of music that might fit together in a story, and that's how we started with Citizen of Time, where there was a little bit of story for each song.
but how did you come up with such characters? Because obviously you mentioned Lord of the Rings, and you have the album To Middle Earth, and I know how much you love that, but I was just wondering, how do you come up with the characters? I mean, do they come, the music come first, or do you have the characters coming first and then you make the music for that character?
I think it's a combination. Sometimes it comes from the music first, sometimes it comes from thinking about a story. But that didn't happen so much on Citizen of Time. That was just sort of me wandering around the universe. You know, it was kind of about me. The next album, In the Wake of the Wind, actually had a story, and we came up with some characters, and then there was a story. It was like writing a soundtrack.
Yeah. Yeah, and did you ever consider maybe going into the soundtrack film industry and Have you pondered on that?
Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot of to get in it is a lot of people want to do it. Let's put it that way.
Okay.
And I've done some small things, and I did a lot of television, but I haven't really connected with the right movie yet. I'm available though, in case somebody's out there.
Well,
Um,
Hans Zimmer recorded for Narada, and now he's a big soundtrack. I don't know if you know him or have you met him? No?
no,
Oh,
I haven't.
okay. Well,
But
go ahead. You were going to say something?
oh, I enjoy his music. I think he did a great music for Dune. I really liked the Dune soundtrack.
Yeah, yeah, really. So, In the Wake of the Wind was an album that had a really amazing acceptance. And Kevin Lunos from the Arken fans, he wants to know, how did you connect with Mercedes Lackey for the storytelling in this album?
Um, Somebody at the label, I think, connected us. In the Wake of the Wind was probably, other than my first album, I think it was a breakthrough album. A lot of people heard my music for the first time within the Wake of the Wind, and the record label did a massive campaign because back then there were record stores, and it came out on a cassette, CD, and they made kites, and they were in the record store. We'd go in there to sign albums, and they had kites up. It was amazing what they did. So they really believed in the music, and I'm grateful for that because it helped reach a lot more people. The
Yeah.
record store would play it in the store,
Hmm.
which is how I discovered a lot of music in the old days.
Yeah.
Just walk in looking for something. My friends and I would just say, "Oh, let's go to the record store." It was like a thing to do, like a social thing.
Yeah, I remember that. They sold the LPs, and we were not able to open them and listen there. But cassettes, they probably had cassettes, and it was possibility of listening to that. So
Yeah. Then the labels got smart and they would provide promotional copies to the stores
yeah.
that people could listen to. I remember one of the first stores when I was very young, like in junior high school. They had little booths that you could take the promotional records and you close the door and you sit there and you
Oh
could listen to the
yes,
whole record if you want. It
yes,
was
yes.
amazing.
It was. And
Yeah.
the cover for In the Wake of the Wind, when you open it, you have all these maps and story, and it's fascinating. It was really, I agree with you, it was an amazing breakthrough, and with something that was a novelty maybe for like the covers that you did with all these stories that people can interpret in their ways. It
Yes.
was really, really amazing.
Well,
So,
by that point, I had had some success, and then the music came out, started to sound very good. So I
mhm,
think then we decided we're going to put a lot of effort behind it, and that's why the label got behind it and put money behind it, and we were in the studio for weeks and weeks and weeks recording it with a lot of real musicians this time. So it really made a difference in the
yeah,
sound.
do you you do believe then that collaborating with musicians, like having, like when you do the live shows, I've seen, you have all these musicians, it's a much more, like, I don't know if that word is rewarding, but heartwarming than if you have to do everything yourself.
Well, the sound is much richer, I
Hmm.
think. And plus you have, like, I take four musicians with me. You have their entire history and the way they play and what they bring to your music is sometimes amazing. I mean, you never would think that they would, it's a nice adventure for me. It's a fun adventure.
And how much actually do you allow the musicians to bring into your music? I mean, you have the compositions, you know what each one's going to play or how you want it to sound, but how much do you allow them to give you, things for your songs?
I think if you asked them, they would say I give them a lot of space.
Okay.
Like, yes, we play a melody. There has to be the melody of the song that the way I wrote it. And then we go from there. There's a lot of places for improvisation and musical exploration, I think.
Yeah,
And we
that's
play with each other too,
yeah.
where you don't get that when you play by yourself.
Do you do like jam sessions now and then with your musicians on stage, or just gigs when you get together with them?
Not usually. Usually we get together for the tour, but then the jam sessions come at the sound check,
Uh-huh.
where we have a little more fun. Once the sound sounds fine, then we can play a little bit and just fool around a little bit.
That's great. So
Yeah.
we're going to listen now to music from your Citizen of Time, the 1990 album, The Great Wall, and from In the Wake of the Wind, we chose Papillon and Overture. Is there anything you want to share about those songs?
No, but that brings me back. Papillon was all over the radio at the time, and I really appreciated that. And the overture was the start of the second side of the record, even though it was a CD.
Yeah.
They're kind of separated by sides, and so the overture was more of the start of the actual story in a way.
Yeah, I started my radio show back in the 80s here in Ecuador. It was the pioneering radio show for New Age. And people really enjoyed your music. I wrote Narada to see if they would support me with some promo material. They were very open, as did Windham Hill and Private Music and other labels. Everybody in the New Age industry was so open, even if I was here in Ecuador, to send me promo material. And that's how, we got such a great variety, because I started with a big collection I had when I was in college. I went to Colorado and Durango. I don't know if you know Durango.
Oh, I know Durango,
You
yes.
do? I went to
Yeah.
FLC there, and that's where I started my New Age collection music in the only record store that there was in town. And so when I came back home to do the radio show, I didn't plan on doing it, but I had such a big collection, and I started working as a DJ in a radio station. And
Nice.
and then, all these New Age Music West, all these labels of New Age music were very, very nice to send me promo material. At first, they
Yeah.
were LPs. Can you imagine flying
Sure.
LPs? But then when the CD era came, it was a lot better, a lot easier, because
Sure.
they would not break as the LPs would
Yes, yes.
break. Yeah. So
Oh, that's exciting. I like
is.
hearing about your history.
yeah.
I used to live in Cortez, which was not that far from
New
Durango.
Mexico. Yeah,
Yeah.
very close. Yeah. Durango is such a beautiful place, a beautiful
So
town,
nice.
Colorado. And I used to go to Farmington, to a mall,
Mm-hmm.
because they had the best chocolate chip mint cookies I've ever tried in my life. So now and then I would go to Farmington to buy those cookies. So it's,
Yeah, they have good fry bread too there.
Yeah.
The Native American fry bread. It was really something.
Yeah. How long ago did you live in Cortez?
Oh, it was around 2000 maybe
Oh.
a little before that.
So what made you go
98.
back to California?
I don't know. We missed California, I think. It's just
Uh.
kind of, I like the desert and I love Mesa Verde.
Yeah.
I love visiting Mesa Verde.
Yeah. And
I actually did.
where
I did
in-
a residence there for
Yeah.
one time.
Yeah, Mesa Verde is amazing. It's at little places. I mean, where do you live in California?
I live like between San Francisco and LA on the coast by San Luis Obispo.
Oh, neat. I went to my second part of my studies. I went to I was living in San Leandro, but I was going to the Berkeley, the Acupressure Institute in Berkeley.
Mm,
Yeah, it was lovely. Yeah, so
Nice.
you California. That was the place to be when the New Age boom happened. The Bay Area, San Francisco, California. It was
especially San Francisco because
Yeah.
they had a radio station, KKSF,
Yeah.
that played a lot of music of ours.
Yeah,
So that was nice.
it was.
And I did many concerts in San Francisco and in California back then,
Uh-huh. Yeah,
Oakland.
it was a great time, the best time. So we're going to listen to some music, and we're coming back for more.
Great.
Permítenos acompañarte con New Age.
So in your album Another Star in the Sky, you incorporated vocals, and it has stayed with you throughout many albums. How important of an instrument is the voice for your work? Because sometimes it's background vocals, but sometimes when you sing with Charlie Brooks, it's just it's so powerful. So you know, how important is voice in your work?
I think it comes in waves. Like Another Star in the Sky was really the first time I sang songs. And then I did it again on Quest of the Dream Warrior, sang a couple songs on that. And then on Laverne, Charlie did most of the singing. I did a little bit of singing, but I haven't really done it since then. I have to be in the mood to do that, and I always wish after I sing, I always wish that I sounded like Peter Gabriel, but I never do. So it's always disappointing. But I do it when I really feel the need to. I have a new album coming out, and there's a lot of voice on it, a lot of music from a lot of singing on it. I didn't do it,
Yeah,
but
your wife, she's in some songs, Diane.
Diane, my ex-wife, yeah,
Yeah.
she sings a lot. She's a good singer.
Uh-huh.
We did a lot of albums together, and she did a lot of we did a lot of songs together, singing together.
And how's your experience with Charlie Brooks singing? I mean,
Charlie was an incredible singer.
yeah, yeah,
She's
amazing.
she hasn't done some music for the last couple of years, but I keep trying to get her to do some
Yeah,
more.
the song Origins that we
Yeah.
started the show with. Oh my
Hmm.
God! The first time I heard it, I just it made me cry. It was just so. He gave me the chills. It made me cry. It was there's something about the mix of the music and even the covers that you do are fabulous.
Yeah.
Even the covers
Well,
are
I think
just
it's
amazing.
important. I think it's important the whole package.
Yeah, yeah, the whole package exactly. So now Kiki Jantet, she's from France, and is an Arkan fan from France. She wants to
Ah.
know if you realize how much your music inspires people like poets, painters, designers. Do you have any idea how you reach people?
I first got the idea I got some communication from yoga teachers, and they said they used my music all the time. And then I started getting mail from writers who said they put the music on and then they can write their story or whatever. Not my story and not whatever that is, but just, you know, it sparks their inspiration,
Yes.
I think.
Yeah,
And so that was powerful to me.
yes, it is. Let me tell you that for the 50th anniversary of my parents, we produced here in a radio station, we produced a video of their story, their life story,
Oh,
with
nice.
photos. And we used, I don't know, 2 or 3 of your songs, like the Wolf Head, Festival of the Goddess, I think, or I don't remember exactly which ones, but Wolf's Head definitely was
Yeah.
a part of it. And I mean, people like, oh my God, because music uh, evokes, music is so powerful in evoking emotional states in people.
Mhm.
And so
Yeah.
that's why I even believe that instrumental music has even more power than lyrics, because it can stir just about anything, where their lyrics is guiding you to move whatever their lyrics are saying.
Right. It's more specific.
Yeah. So the
Yeah.
instrumental music just takes you wherever you want to go. So
I think that's exactly right. A lot of, at first, I thought, well, I hope people get this story, but then I realized it doesn't matter if they get my story, as long as their imagination is working,
yeah,
and that I've been very fortunate to have a lot of that.
yeah, that's amazing. So as for what Kiki is asking, it's like it's good that how much you touch people with your music, even if your story is one, but it reaches something different in everybody. It's just amazing. It has that power. Amazing.
Yes. I'm actually hoping to go to Europe in the next couple of years, so maybe I'll see Kiki out there.
Yeah, hopefully. I'm sure your Arkham fans are going to drive crazy wherever you go. So I wanted to ask you what Kyla's journey is all about.
Kyla's journey was kind of the second installment in the Wake of the Wind trilogy because that album had been so successful. We decided to continue that formula with the map, and the artist came in and did an incredible job. And then Mercedes came up with a just incredible story. And it was like, again, writing for a film. And then I had, like I mentioned, I sang on a couple songs on that. And then I had, like I mentioned, I sang on a couple songs on that. And then I had, like I mentioned, I sang on a couple songs on that. And then I had, like I mentioned, I sang on a couple songs on that. And then I had, like I mentioned, I sang on a couple songs on that. And then I had, like I mentioned, I sang on a couple songs on that. And then I had, like I mentioned, I sang on a couple songs on that. And then I had, like I mentioned, I sang on a couple songs on that. And then I had, like I mentioned, I sang on a couple songs on that. And then I had, like I mentioned, I sang on a couple songs on that. And then I had, like I mentioned, I sang on a couple songs on that. And then I had, like I mentioned, I sang on a couple songs on that. And then I had, like I mentioned, I sang on a couple songs on that. And then I had, like I mentioned, I sang on a couple songs on that. And then I had, like I mentioned, I sang on a couple songs on that. And then I had, like I mentioned, I sang on a couple songs on that. And then I had, like I mentioned, I sang on a couple songs on that. And then I had, like I men and it seemed to flow with the rest of the music. So
Amazing. So,
it
like,
was, it's more like me always wanting to go on a journey, through music. So Kyla
yeah,
was like, you know,
yeah,
a
like
vehicle.
you mentioned this trilogy. Is it
Mhm.
one story divided in three different albums? Finishing in the Return of the Guardians, or I mean, why is a trilogy?
I think, I don't know. It's probably because The Lord of the Rings was a trilogy and I'm a huge fan. I don't know. Trilogies seem to have,
Yeah.
you can open it up with one and then go through something and then you can end it. You can sort of have an ending, like the first three Star Wars movies.
Yeah,
Um, you know,
those were the best, actually.
yeah, well, I think so
Nothing
too.
compares to that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But that
that's
was
true.
like a trilogy.
Hmm.
So I just think it works as an idea. And I think the three stories, they're not that connected, but they're in the same place, like the same land,
Yeah, that's right.
something like that. I don't know.
So I guess we're ready for some music. Now we're gonna listen actually from The Spirit of Olympia, that you were with Costia and David Lance. We'll have The Keeper of the Flame. We'll have From Another Star in the Sky, Pool of Radiance.
Oh yeah.
From Quest of the Dream Warrior, we'll have The Journey Begins. Kyla's right. And from
Yeah.
Return of the Guardians, we'll have Reunion. How's that?
Mm, beautiful.
Yeah, wonderful. Lovely
Beautiful.
music. You're just amazing, David.
Thank you. Can't wait to hear it.
Okay, we'll listen to this music and we'll be back with David for another part of the story.
Con el auspicio de Plenitud, Ciudad de la Alegría, hogarplenitud.org.es, Serenidad Spa Terapéutico, serenidad.es, Permasalud Glamping, permasalud.com.
Okay, we're back with David for some more information. And
Nice hearing all that old music. I
oh
haven't
yeah,
listened to it recently. It's not that old, but I mean, I haven't listened to it recently, so it's nice to hear all
yeah.
those bills and all that
The
music because makes me think of all the work we put into it.
oof, I
And
imagine. How was the work? I mean, you said all the work we put into it. But actually, now that you mention, um, is there any of the albums from this first part of your journey, like from Valley in the Clouds all the way to Caravan of Light, that you hold dearest to you? I mean, that, because of the work or because of the meaning in your life in a specific moment, is there any album that you cherish the most from those days?
I think In the Wake of the Wind is probably a highlight because that was the first album where I had a lot of time in the studio to experiment. And we brought in violinists and people from the Milwaukee Symphony and soloists. And so I just couldn't wait to get to the studio every day. I had written the music. That's a place you start, right? It's not the end.
Hmm.
So then everybody comes in, and the engineer and my brother who played drums and percussion on everything, and a whole bunch of other instruments, and so you put it all together, and you just watch it. It's kind of like I miss it, sometimes
Yeah.
because now I work a lot alone, and back then it was more like, okay, here's the song, here's the basis for the song, but then it goes somewhere else and
Yeah.
got bigger. And so that was probably a highlight because I did the story, I had the map, the whole thing was everything kind of was a high point. Not
Yeah.
that high points later, but that was a somewhere I got to another level with that album. Let's put
Uh-huh.
it that way.
Like, those albums were part of the boom of the New Age movement and in music, and it was everywhere and people listening to it. But then something shifted, and on the turn of the century, then the New Age movement did not have the same strength as before. The New Age labels were, Windham Hill was sold, William Ackerman sold it, and we're going to talk about it next because you changed to Windham Hill after this. So
Yes.
I want to ask you about that, but something happened. Is this one of the reasons? Maybe why you are doing more productions on your own, alone, than before, when, like, in the Wake of the Wind with different musicians and everything?
Well, today I can do a lot more on my own. Like I have more sounds at my disposal. I have my own studio now. Uh, it's different than back then. I don't know what happened with the New Age movement, like you say. I never really considered myself that way. I mean, Narada was a New Age label, but I didn't consider. I mean, if you think In the Wake of the Wind is New Age, I don't know. I felt like it was more orchestral, and there's a couple almost rock songs on that album, instrumental rock. So I was always trying to push against that, like because I always thought that New Age music was sort of like solo piano, solo guitar, you know, much more mellow, like William Ackerman does, although I'm sure he considers it's just guitar music.
Yeah.
I think it started to get people didn't like that name for a while,
Yeah,
I
well,
don't know. I
like
don't know
it's,
why.
well, you see, I think that my show is called, it used to be called New Age, then I had to let it die, and I am back again with New Age. And
Uh-huh.
I think it has to do a lot with the marketing that was done for the New Age music
Hmm.
movement back in those days. It was
Yeah.
it was really there was a bad marketing for it. So that's why
Hmm.
musicians didn't want to be labeled under New Age. Stephen Halpern had anti-frantic music, and American Gramophone. Chip Davis was baroque, rock baroque, and all things like that. Because nobody wanted to be part of the New Age label because of the
Right.
bad marketing it had. But it
Yeah.
actually was, for me, and being from another country and having promoted that here. New Age was an open door for people to get to know world music, and Narada was having Andean music, Celtic music,
Hmm. Hmm.
African music. In Narada and there was another label, I don't remember right. Celestial Harmonies. They were
Hmm.
probably the biggest labels on bringing about the world music to the world, because I think Celtic music became very powerful after it got channeled through New
Yeah.
Age labels.
Yeah.
So
And Riverdance too.
Riverdance, obviously, Riverdance, Lord
Yeah.
of the Dance, all those things. It was just amazing.
I think Narada realized they needed to expand, though. We talk about world music. They had an Andean collection. They had a lot of different world musics that I just loved. I was happy they went that direction.
Hmm.
I just wanted to do my albums, whatever I felt
Whatever,
like.
yeah.
You know,
You don't need a label. You just do your music. I mean, I don't
right.
know
But
why.
one thing about New Age is that if people like New Age, they could find it.
Yeah,
Because they could find a radio station. They could go into a record store and there was a new age bin,
yeah,
where in the old days there wasn't any of that. It was harder to find.
yeah,
But at least there was a place that people who enjoyed that music could find it.
yeah.
Like your show, I'm sure.
Yeah, that's why the labels were and are sort of important, because that people can go to a specific place to look for what they want,
Hmm.
and I think New Age did a great deal, not only in terms of music but also the philosophy behind it of bringing East and West together in many ways.
Yeah, and I
So
think it was a play, there was a lot of relaxation music that I think
yeah,
people enjoyed that aspect of it too, because the world can sometimes be frantic, depends on your job or whatever, or your family. It's nice to sit down with a relaxing record sometimes.
yeah,
And so that was part of it. But I think people thought that it was a philosophy necessarily, and I think that's what people backed off from.
yeah, maybe.
They didn't want that.
But you had to do a
I
lot
don't know.
with, the covers of the albums, of New Age albums, which back in, let's talk about the 70s, the 80s.
Hmm.
All the pop and rock albums were mainly the pictures, the photos of the artists or the
Hmm.
bands in the covers.
Yeah.
And when New Age albums started, they were, Narada Mystique and, the Valley in the Clouds. And they were,
Hmm.
they were abstract. they were nature connected,
Yes,
and I think that was
yes,
a major impact. The connection to the abstract and to nature, which
yes.
people were needing in those days very much.
I agree. Yeah, it took me 4 albums to get my face on the cover.
Yeah, but I think it was a way of people to connect with something different. So
I
I think
agree.
it was
I
good.
agree.
It was good. Like,
Wyndham Hill really set the bar for that because they had little nature pictures
yeah,
and just a white background,
yeah,
So,
yeah. So for the next albums, starting Spirit Wind, you changed to Windham Hill. What was the major difference between Narada and Windham Hill?
well, Narada was starting to change. The management had changed a little bit, and the people that I was close to, my producer had left, Eric Linder, who I'd done many records with up to then. Uh, he left to do something else, and so it was. I don't know. I felt like I wasn't lost. I mean, I was still a major player on that label, but that particular contract just ended around that time, and I thought, well, I looked at Wyndham Hill. Plus, I was in California. They were in California. It was just easier to communicate. I could drive to the office, and talk to the art director if I had to. And
Narada was
I just
in
wanted,
Milwaukee.
yeah,
Yeah.
Milwaukee,
Okay.
where I went many times,
Yeah.
and we did a lot of recording there. But I was living in LA at the time, and Wyndham Hill was in LA, so it was just an easier thing, I think.
Yeah. So, like, great because the albums that you had with Windham Hill were also a success. And, it's like
Yes,
they were amazing. The Celtic Book of Days and
yes,
the
I
Spirit
love that album.
Wind. Yeah, me too. Well,
And then Citizen of the World got nominated for another Grammy,
yeah,
so
yeah,
I felt like it didn't matter what label I was on,
yeah.
people enjoyed
It
the
was your
music, and
work. It was your
yeah, it
work.
was a nice thing.
Yeah,
It was a
yeah,
nice thing.
yeah. So, David, what part of you do you think is being expressed? What part of you, like, I don't know, is being expressed through your music?
I think it really is simple. It's just my desire to travel and have adventures through music.
Hmm.
I would if I could, I would travel more around the world all the time.
Yeah.
Uh, but it's sometimes not possible. So I like experimenting with music. I like coming up with ideas um, that takes me on a little adventure. I like to make each song a little adventure. Um, and I think that's the biggest reason I do music. I just want to explore.
Yeah. That's great. Thank you for sharing that. Like Jade, Jade wants to know. I don't know how to say her last name, but she's from the Arkan fans as well. She wants to know what is the Latin translation of "Behind the Walls of Stone" that you have in your album,
Celtic Book
the
of
Celtic
Days.
Book of Days, exactly.
I actually I can't remember, but I went to a Latin instructor in a college to translate the lyrics that I had written into Latin because I wanted it to have that sound. And so she just translated it.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I
Great.
don't think I have that piece of paper anymore, but or the email, if it was even email by then, probably
Uh-huh.
was. But I had someone translate it,
Yeah.
and I think it might even be printed on the album.
I,
But
I have to
it's
look at it.
it's basically I wrote a bunch of lyrics for that song, which is one of my favorite songs. I don't know why. It just captures a mood that I really liked, and it has the uilleann pipes in it, and all just the it's just so moody. And then
Yeah.
the choir comes in with that Latin, and it's just like wow.
Yeah.
It's like painting.
Yeah.
It's like what do you want to do here in this corner of this painting? You want blue? Do you want the sky? Do you want a dark sky? Do you want a castle over here? You want a river running through it? Whatever.
Hmm.
And it's really that song was a lot like that. I had this guitar part that I really liked the chords that basically goes through the whole song, but then the choir comes in and the pipes, it's just like
Well,
I just love.
I was trying to find information about the song "The Boats" because I
Hmm.
love that. I couldn't find any information about the song per se. So what's the boats about? What is that song
Boats
about?
is just about, I think people on the shore are just looking at the boats out there, whether they're fishing boats, whether they're sailing boats. And I was hoping to work with John Anderson on that song, and you can hear it in the vocals. He would have been great, but for some reason, the management and the I don't know, it just never happened. They were actually had a conversation, but then it got to be we just had to record it. So
I,
my brother and my wife at the time, we recorded all the vocals. Uh, and I just thought it was kind of a fun thing, and it has an interesting meter in some places. And the guy who played concertina just was some amazing.
yeah, it's
You write this
amazing song.
piece, you write this music on paper, and it's like, oh yeah, it sounds pretty good. When somebody gets it in their hands and under their fingers, it grows.
Yeah,
It becomes something more than you even thought it could be.
exactly. Like its
And
own personality, its own something.
yeah,
You
and
know,
that song I really wanted to like. There's a lot of places where there's call and response, and there's three different vocal parts all happening, and that was a fun thing for me to try to orchestrate, I think.
you mentioned Peter Gabriel. You mentioned Yes, and I just wanted to let you know that Yes, I got to interview John Anderson once for his album Deseo that he recorded for Windham Hill.
Hmm.
And, he was my hero. And now that you say that you thought about having him in the boats, it would have been actually so cool. He's like a castrati, but
Yes, of course.
he's such a. You were born in November. Were you born in November? Were
No,
you,
July.
oh, July, okay. Because he was born in November, I remember, and he said that he was a triple Scorpio. So
Ah,
he's a funny guy. He's a funny guy. But I love Yes, and I love Peter Gabriel. I wish one day he would be open to give me offer me a possibility of an interview, but it's a bit difficult to reach him. But he's amazing, amazing, amazing.
you should be able to reach him. I think you could reach him.
I'll try. I'm gonna keep trying because I've tried before, but it's been difficult. So,
Yeah.
like, I already asked you. You already said that this is a song. This is a question I had for you. But uh, now you mentioned in the wake of the wind in that first period until the year 2000 that was meaningful. After that, in this new um, period of time, century in this century, which which album has been very dearest for you in your heart, and why?
Wow. They are like little children to me, each one. It's like it's hard. They're so different, but they are stamped in time like only I would know this, wherever I was at the time, not living, but mentally or musically or my growth. I think the Celtic Book of Days was a milestone for me, was the first milestone after In the Wake of the Wind, where there was a lot of music on that record for one thing, and I was super inspired to do it, and which I usually am for every recording. Um, but I think that album was a milestone. I think that should have got a Grammy nomination instead of Citizen of the World, which I also liked, and which also sort of proves my point about traveling. Citizen of the World, I just went all over places that I'd never been, but I thought would illustrate how I felt about the music, like would take people there. Obviously I'm not a African musician or whatever, but there's a couple cool African songs on that album, and I had some people play African instruments, and so you know, I think Celtic Book of Days was a highlight, though. And then I don't know, I just kept making records,
Yeah, you have
still,
been
still
very
making them.
active. That's so cool and so grateful. So let's listen to some companions from Spirit Wind. And from the Celtic Book of Days, I have Road to the Fair and the Boats, and possibly, let's see if I can do this song that, who was it that mentioned that?
Behind the Walls of Stone.
Yeah, I could include that one in this section as well. Okay, let's listen to the music.
Great.
Con el auspicio de Plenitud, Ciudad de la Alegría, hogarplenitud.org.es, Serenidad Spa Terapéutico, serenidad.es, Permasalud Glamping, permasalud.com.
Okay, David, how did you face the changes in the music industry? Okay, one day you're selling LPs, then you're selling CDs, and suddenly they disappear because it's a turn to the downloadable MP3s. So everything changed, and the quality of sound in recordings was not the same. They were not as great as the LPs. I mean, from LPs to CDs, the quality lowered a little bit. And then from LPs, CDs to MP3s, the quality of sound also lowered. So how do you survive those changes?
Oh boy, that's a big question. I think I liked CDs because as a composer, they didn't have any crackles or pops in them. You put the CD on, it was pretty much like it had been in the studio. And I loved LPs too, because I think LPs and CDs to some extent, LPs forced people to have an experience. They put the LP on, and they're not picking the needle up, going, "Oh, I'm going to play my favorite track again." So they sit down and they listen to it. Maybe they're looking at the artwork, which is big back then, and they read the story, like "In the Wake of the Wind" was on the back of the map or whatever, and so they're having more of an experience. And even with the CDs, obviously every car had one by then, so you're not having the same experience because you have to drive. But with LPs, you're sitting down and you're listening and having more of an intense experience with the music. I think by the time MP3s came around, there was a sound loss. And now today, people play tracks. Like they'll get a playlist. Maybe you're one of the songs on that playlist. Maybe you're not. Or maybe they find a playlist of all your music. Like I think Spotify has something called "This is David Arkenstone," and it's got all my stuff on. But I think it's so mixed up. The music. You hear a song from this period, and then all of a sudden you hear something from last year, and I don't know. I don't like it as much as the more personal experience, and and it's hard. It's challenging. I think I've had to become more of the record company than I wanted to be. I like just making my records, handing it to them, and then all of a sudden it's in the store, Nowadays, there's no stores, and you have to fight for your place, and Spotify releases 60,000 tracks every day. So how do you curate that? How do you figure out what you want to even find what you want to hear? I think it's challenging for the listener. I think they have to be more educated in a way. And I'm grateful that I have these fans that love what I do. I can at least reach them, and hopefully more people every day. And maybe they talk to somebody. I don't know. I just know I can't stop making music, whatever the business is like.
Yeah. But like before, when you were able to sell any amount through the labels, you would sell like 10,000, 20,000, a million copies. You would get paid for the albums, the amount of albums you sold. And now there's a little bit of control in the MP3 world. So, what I was wondering is like, now are you sort of not forced, the word is not forced, but to make up for the economic input that you used to have before when the LPs were sold, like now the musicians in general would compensate that through concerts, because I don't know how other way they can get what they deserve from their music.
I think that time has passed in a way. I don't know how it would ever come back to that where you get paid fairly for your music. If people spend $10 on Apple Music or Spotify, they can have every song in the world.
Yeah.
So by the time they play yours, you get a decimal point penny, you know. So unless you're Beyonce or Taylor Swift, I suppose. But, I think that it's still worth doing for me, and I do concerts to probably make up for some of that. Um, but even that's hard, if you're going to take four people with you and a crew. Um, but I just love it so much. I mean, I'm passionate about it. I'm passionate about making new music.
Yeah.
And so I don't know any other, I kind of navigate the best I can, the
Hmm.
sort of the new world, and it's not, composers and musicians are not being treated fairly, by these streaming services, I don't think.
Yeah.
But, what do you do? I mean,
No, I don't think the music industry has changed into I can say I feel and what I've seen, it's 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 become very corrupted, and so in that corruption they market, they manipulate, and the real musicians, Peter Gabriel has his own label like real
yes,
world,
sure.
and so he's able, like Lorena McKenna also has Queenland Roads, and they manage and they take care of their own, and they don't lose the focus or the heart in the work. But
Right.
if you are not able to do that, it is very difficult for musicians nowadays. It's like really really sad because the art. I remember Lorena in a video that I saw from her. She said that we were losing our connection to music, and the people were not really like, as you mentioned before. It was like an experience when you listen to a whole album. You go through
Mhm.
it. That what we used to have back in the days. You go through an experience of listening the whole album, which takes you wherever. But it was a beautiful experience. But we don't even have the time now. Time is flowing. That's why people listen to specific songs, and they don't. They've lost the possibility that we used to have back then in the 80s, 70s, 60s.
Yeah.
Um, so I don't know which way, and I don't know if you have a sense being in the music industry. Uh, like George Bateman from the Arkan fans, he wants to know, like, how does it feel to be a modern day composer? Like, based on what we're
Well,
talking, maybe.
I think one of the, excuse me, good things about being a modern day composer, and I don't think of myself as that way. I've just been a composer for so long. Okay, modern day is the technology. I have so many sounds at my fingertips. I can record in my studio. I can record my guitar part as if I was at a studio paying $150 an hour. So that's some benefit. But I think another thing that's been proven by Apple Music and Spotify and things like that is that in music is still important to people. Whatever it is, whether it's a playlist of gentle meditation music, of whatever it might be, music is still important to people, and I think that's a great thing. I think it will probably always be that way. Now, unfortunately, they have to be more educated about what they want to listen to, uh, because how do you find what you want when you have 60,000 tracks a day put up there? Plus, I also think, and maybe I'm wrong about this, but that was one good thing about having labels, is that they were sort of curators of music that came to them, and they could be, not that they were qualified or whatever, but like when my music got to them, they thought it was a good thing, whereas they had a box of cassettes from other people that maybe they didn't think was that good. So I was fortunate in that beginning. I think it would be very difficult to be an artist starting out now. I think it would be
Yes.
very challenging.
Yeah.
Um, but I think as far as modern day, it's like, yeah, the business is kind of wacky the way it works for the composer, but the sounds you can make and the adventures you can take are just incredible
Yes,
sonically.
definitely. Definitely. Yeah, I think, one of the things that most people, because I've known people that they don't care for music. I mean, they could spend I am a music lover, so for me, one day without music,
Obviously.
it's very difficult. But most people, music is part of somehow of their lives, and I don't think we can afford and we won't lose contact. It's just that the quality of music, you know, um, in the 70s and 80s, we would have amazing rock bands and amazing music, and you would play like So from Peter Gabriel. The album is perfect from start to the end.
For
You know,
sure.
now you get an album or you get a see one song is okay, and the
Hmm.
rest are just to fill in. So things have changed so much, which I think is a reflection of all the changes that we're going through in the world anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, I
Who
think so.
knows where we're going to end up? So we might as well keep doing what we can. As you with your new creations, I know you have new projects coming soon. I know you cannot tell me about your new project, but what what kind of projects do you have in mind? Not the one that you're going to share with us, the new project, but do you have many projects in mind coming
I
soon?
always do. I
Hmm.
finish one and I start another one. I mean,
Wow.
the I decided with this new project, which I can only tell you a few things, it's going to be out on July 1st, but I'm not going to release a bunch of singles. I want the first people's first experience to be all of it. It's another with a story. It's going to be in a box. I mean, I'm really crazy loco to even be doing this, but I think there'll be enough people that want to be part of it.
How are you gonna now? You sell it through Amazon through how do you sell the albums now?
Well, that's the way you do it. I have a distributor who takes, like I have back there, a couple LPs I did. He sells them through Amazon and some other places. There aren't that many places you can sell them though.
There's no
But
Tower Records anymore.
no, that's very sad to
Yeah,
me. Yeah,
yeah, it is.
because I used to go there all the time when I was a kid.
There's an Amoeba record store in San Francisco where you
Hmm.
can find used LPs and music. Is this still alive?
Yes, it is. It's right next to another record store too. Like
Wow.
there's a block of two record stores there.
Well,
There used to be
amazing.
one called Rasputin's that was there. I don't know if that's still there. But yeah, like 6 months ago, I was in Amoeba and I bought like 10 LPs.
Really? I remember from when I used to study in San Leandro and I went to Berkeley and visited San Francisco for the Amoeba Records. Amazing. Well, but at least there's a way that people can get a hold of your music, and which is Amazon. It's the way to go.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. I mean, look how many other industries have been kind of put out of business by Amazon or made it more challenging. All the little places, you can't have a little record store anymore.
no.
I mean, there are a few of them. I know there's one in Portland
Hmm.
and a couple other ones that somehow they stay alive. But
Yeah, I used to sell new age music here in the store when I did the show, and so people asked me for the music, so I started selling new age music. But
right?
on the turn of the century, and when MP3 came, I never sold an album anymore.
Yeah.
So it's like I felt
No,
it.
but
I felt it too.
I think LPs are now, they did like $1 billion of LP last year.
Yeah,
So I
they're
think people
coming
are
back.
getting more to wanting that experience.
Yeah,
They want the artwork that they can actually see. They want the experience of putting the record on and playing it start to finish. So I think, it's kind of coming back, a
yeah.
lot of people who are passionate about that can find the music.
Yeah, I went through. I hope so because I went through the mini disc. The remember those DAT? I had everything
Oh,
for the radio.
DATs, yeah, yeah.
DATs and mini disc and everything, but CDs were the ones that continued and
Right.
still today. But stereo systems, it's difficult to find like great quality stereo systems nowadays. Like you don't find them anymore. People listen to in their phone.
Yeah. You have to hunt for that.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's how changes have come to be, and what can we do? So you're not going to tell us about new projects? Oh no,
Uh,
you're having the one coming in July.
I can't. I can't. I wish I could, but I can't really say more than I said about it.
Yeah, that's
Except that it's,
perfect.
you know what I can say?
Well,
I can say that it's inspired by my love of Celtic and Nordic and cinema. It's
hmm,
inspired by that.
great mixture.
Yeah.
Well, can't wait to hear your new album, David.
Yeah.
And
Maybe we can talk again around that time. That'd be
sure,
great.
sure. You let me know, and we'll be able to just focus on one album and not like we did today, but like. Okay, we're going to end the show with music from Citizen of the World and Caravan of Light.
Mm.
What can you share with us about these albums?
Well, Citizen of the World, I already mentioned that it was my way of armchair traveling, sort of. You know, I want to go here. I want to go to Australia. I want to go to the ancient Egypt, whatever it is that was in my head. I tried to paint that picture. Um, and with Caravan of Light, I was always trying to get that to be a live show. Uh, but it was going to be very expensive, and I could never get anybody interested in it. But that's the way the album was designed, so that would be a start to finish. And there's a couple songs that I just love on that album that are just so amazing. And I had a guy, the song on Skies of Africa. I came up with this guitar riff that was kind of idiomatically similar to a lot of the African music. And then I had a guy come in to sing it. And it was so great because I never could have sung it like that, and it wouldn't have been the same.
Yeah.
But he had the whole vibe and the passion and the accent, and I really loved that.
So, why, how are you connected? What connected you to the Celtic world that, I seem to notice that you are very fond of it. What connected you? Is there any?
Fond of it. I think I saw the Chieftains when I was pretty young. Chieftains were an
Right.
incredible Irish band
Yes.
that 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 helped put Celtic music on the world map. Uh, just the way they play, they were some of the best musicians I'd ever heard. I didn't even know there were musicians like that. And the way they played together and the whole thing, I don't think there would have been a river dance without them forging the way in a
Yeah.
way. But I think I saw them several times when I was young at little small venues. I don't even know how they afforded to tour over it because it was like 8 guys in the band.
Yeah.
But
Paddy Maloney.
they made an impact on me, and then I started finding other Celtic bands. Alton was a band I really liked, and even earlier than that, a band from the '70s called Fairport Convention. They had aspects of Celtic folk music in their music. They tried to be a little more rock with it, but you could still hear the influences. And then one time I was in a record store in Portland, not this one I was talking about. I discovered a gentleman named Alan Stivell. I don't know if you know him.
Harp. Yes, of
Harp.
course. Yes.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
And I think from that point, I was just like hooked on that kind of music. But he was special. I mean, he sang, his voice was beautiful. He sang while he played harp. I only saw him in concert one time in a little place in LA. And but I heard that in the record store and I bought it and it was like, oh my gosh. It was called
Yes.
Renaissance of the Celtic Harp was the name of
Yeah.
the album.
I remember. I
And it was
remember.
just it turned my world around when I heard that. It was like the kind of music I wanted to make
Yeah.
because I wasn't really making original music at the time so much. I was in like a top 40 band and we were
Yeah.
traveling around the country playing the hits. And I
Did,
heard that and it's like, wow.
did you ever hear Moving Hearts, Donaldoni, Moving Hearts? The band is called Moving Hearts, but in the Celtic world, the Celtic musicians, they were just a small community, and so musicians would play in one band and then they go to another, like Relativity, and Relativity is the name of a song in one of the albums that I remember. So families like that would play in different bands, and they would make amazing. I mean, Celtic music is just amazing. So I'm glad that you mentioned that Alan Stivell music, because
Oh
it's
man.
important. Now, in one of the videos of one of your concerts, I saw you playing a pan flute. Have you ever
Hmm.
considered exploring Andean instruments like the charango? There's different kinds of flutes and pan flutes.
Yeah.
Do you know
Uh,
anything about them?
no, I know that the Kenya flute, I think that's how you pronounce it. It kind of has a notch. No, not like this one.
Ah, la quena. Yeah,
Yeah, Kenya, Kenya,
Kenya, yeah. Yeah, he was
Kenya.
thinking about Kenya, like the country. Kenya, yeah.
It has
Uh-huh.
it has a notch with a Q.
Hmm.
Probably not a Q in Spanish or
It's
where.
a Q. It's Kenya.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
has a notched flute like a shakuhachi,
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
which is challenging to play.
It is. It is challenging.
So I have one and I've tried it and it's like, yeah, I got okay, but I would never attempt like if I was going to do a record like that, I would get the people.
Yeah.
I would find,
How about the
you know,
charango? It has
yeah,
a
the triangle.
very,
Yeah, it's
very
about this
amazing
long.
voice.
It's about
Yeah.
this big.
It has an amazing quality of sound,
Oh yeah.
actually. Yeah.
Oh yeah. It's a beautiful instrument.
Amazing. David, I want to thank you. We've come, to the end of the part that
Part one.
yeah, except part one. And so we're going to listen to Forest Runners, Safe
Oh,
Passage from Citizen of World, and
yeah.
Inshallah and Road to Zanzibar from Caravan of Light. Is there
Yeah.
anything that you'd like to tell your fans? Anything else that you'd like to tell them?
I would like to tell them that I'm grateful for people like you, Gloria, who get the music out there because without that it's very hard to reach people. And so I'm very grateful about that and I'm grateful to them for following me through on my journeys.
Yeah.
It's really important, and nowadays as far as being a modern composer, going back to that, you can be in touch with people. Back then it was, 20 years ago, it was like, oh, I'd get a package of mail from Narada, and then letters were written 6 months before that. Now somebody can just email me right away or Facebook and I can communicate with them. And I think
Yeah.
that's wonderful.
And this interview back in the 80s when I was doing the show, it was just a wishful thinking possibility. It's like, oh God, it's like now it's possible. So I'm so happy I'm back with the show and able to do this and bring the people,
Yes.
not only the music but the person behind it. So I'm very thankful that you accepted this interview, and
Yeah.
hopefully we'll have another part two
Yes.
after your new album. I
Great.
Great. Thank you. I was very happy to meet you, and thank you so much for all the wonderful music that you've given us. Thank you so much, David.
You're welcome. And like I say, sometimes when I'm in a concert, that's just the first part. I put it out there. When it comes back, that's the communication that I love.
Hmm.
You know, people enjoying the music, like you said, people telling me that they use their music in their poetry or whatever it is. That makes it super valuable for me.
Yeah,
And I love doing it.
yeah. So keep it up. Keep up. Don't give up on doing the music.
No, can't do that. I'm too passionate about it.
Yeah, I'm glad. I'm glad. Well, have a great day, and thanks again. And until the next time.
Thank you, Gloria.
Take care.
Adios.
Bye bye.